Hello, my name is Cilene Brumer, and this is my Reteach Proposal, The History of Immigration in America. I hope you enjoy it. This is a short YouTube video of Malcolm. He is a 19-year-old Guatemala immigrant, and he tells his story, why he immigrated to America and how does it feel to be an immigrant in America. This is an overview of my presentation. I am going to start with the 1606 first settlers, and I do understand there were people who came to America before 1606, but this is the first, um, you know, successful English colony in America. And of course, there were the natives American here. They were the natives, the people who were um, living here when they arrived. And then I am going to go to 1619 to 1863 with the forced immigration. 20 enslaved people arrived in Virginia in 1619. People were captured in Africa and brought to America against their will to work for free in inhumane conditions. 1830 to 1880, old immigration, 10 million plus immigrants arrived from England, Ireland, Germany, and Scandinavia to work building railroads, canals, roads, and agriculture. 1882 to 1930, the new immigration, more than 22 million European immigrants, including Italians, Poles, Russian, Austro-Hungarian, and the Slavic group of immigrants. And I'm going to end with 1963 and present time with the Asian and Latin America immigrant, which I am an immigrant from Brazil. So we're going to start with the first settlers. And they arrived here on the 1607 and they founded Jamestown. The London Company, a joint stock enterprise created to find gold and other riches in America, sends 104 Englishmen to found Jamestown, all by 38 dying in the first 9 months. 1836, with the Pequot War. The Pequot War begins in Connecticut when a combined force of 240 Puritans and 1,000 Indians allies attacked the Pequot without warning. The Pequot are the most influential tribe in New England. Although the Pequot had never attacked the English settlers, the English considered them to be a political threat. By 1837, the Pequot are almost completely wiped out. 1643, Dutch Indian Massacre. The Dutch staged a massacre of 1,500 Indians of the Wapanger Confederacy, seeking Dutch protection from raiding Mohawks. Historians estimate that the Native American population at the time of Columbus' first landing was approximately 50 million, and this population decreased by as much as 90% by 1700. Oh, so sad. Next, we have 1619, 1863, the forced immigration. Slaves were punished they were brought here from Africa against their will and forced to work for free. They were punished by whipping, shackling, hanging, beating, burning, mutilation, branding, rape, and imprisonment. Punishment was often meted out in response to disobedience or perceived infractions, but sometimes abuse was performed to reassert the dominance of the master or overseer over the slave. Pregnancy was not a barrier to punishment. Methods were devised to administer lashing without harming the baby. Slave master would dig a hole big enough for the woman's stomach to lie in and proceed with the lashings. They didn't want to harm the baby, not because it was a humane thing to do, but they needed more slaves. So Black codes in Jim Crow law, 1877 to 1960. Laws were passed to enforce racial segregation, restrict black votes. Vagrancy was heavily punished. Holding any occupation other than farmer or servant unless they paid an annual tax of $10 to $100. Separate facility not only for school but for hospitals and clinics, sports events, restaurants, barbershop, railroads and bus station, restrooms, beaches, public park, and many other places. Miscegenation laws, which made marriage cohabitated between whites and any person of color illegal. The Ku Klux Klan used violence and terror to keep blacks from asserting their rights as citizens in many states. And this was after they abolished the slaves. This is a picture of a slave, Gordon, a free man, um, a freed slave in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was whipped, and this is the scars on his back. Next, we have the Irish, Polish, German, and Scandinavians immigrant. The refugees seeking haven in America were poor and disease-ridden. They threatened to take jobs away. They perceived to take jobs away from Americans and strain welfare budgets. They practiced an alien religion, Catholicism, and pledged allegiance to a foreign leader. They were bringing with them crime. They were accused of being rapists. So these are all the things that immigrants were accused of in America after they arrived here. Discrimination, poverty, and difficulties in reestablishing families' life led to the erroneous conclusion that migration destroyed families. By 13-year-old, 7 in 10 children work outside the home. Church was burned and priests were set on fire during that time. Next, we have the old, the new immigration. Now we have 1882, 1930, the new immigration, which were Italians, Pole, Russian, Austro-Hungarians, and the Slavics. By 1910, one-fourth of the workforce in America were European foreigners. Coal, iron, and steel mines, clothing factories, slaughters, and packing houses, road constructions, and rubber factories were some of the jobs performed by foreigners. They hold over 50% of the workforce in those industries. The Irish and other Europeans eventually assimilated to the culture and hold political power in various states. No longer embedded in the lowest rungs of American society, the Irish, unfortunately, gained acceptance in the mainstream by dishing out the same bigotry towards newcomers that they had experienced. County Cork native and working men's party leader Dennis Kinney, for example, closed his speech to American laborers with his rhetorical signature, "Whatever happens, the Chinese must go." 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act. In 1882, a federal law was passed prohibiting all Chinese from entering the country. The law lasted until 1943. Initially, they were gold miners, but the ability to find gold was extraordinary, creating animosity. They were forced to move to the cities. Americans in the West persisted in their stereotyping of the Chinese as degraded, exotic, dangerous, and competitor for the jobs and wages. Senator John F. Miller of California, a proponent of the Chinese Exclusion Act, argued that the Chinese works were machine-like or obtuse nerve, but little affected by heat or cold, wiry, sinewy, and with muscles of iron. Next, we have the Jewish people. In 1933, more than 9,000 Jewish people arrived at the coast of Miami on board the St. Louis ship. By that time, the Jewish people were suffering terribly in Germany, and they were fleeing the country, looking for places where they can escape from Hitler. The entrance, they came to America, and the entrance was denied by the USA and the rest of the world. We denied the entrance because we had a quota of 27,000 Germans allowed, and the ship was not scheduled to arrive in America. They returned to Germany. Some of the passengers were murdered, some killed themselves, and the rest were put in concentration camp. 6 million Jewish people died during World War II. This is a video of a 20,000 people gather here in America, in New York, in Madison Square Garden, in support of the Nazi Germany. So that's a very hard video. Through the Dearborn Independent, Henry Ford published articles that would refer to Jews in every possible context as the root of America and the world's ills. If there were strikes, it was the Jew. Any kind of financial scandal, the Jews. Agriculture depression, the Jews. So the Jew, in a way, became the symbol of a world that was being manipulated and controlled. Next, we have 1963 and till now, present time. Asian and Latin American immigrants. Unlike European immigrants, the labor status of people of color severely limits their opportunity. So the darker your skin color, less opportunities you have. The foreign-born population has risen from 19.8 million in 1990 to 40 million in 2010. Second, these new residents are primarily Latino and Asian, not Europeans, as was the case in earlier immigrant areas. Pandemic hate crime against Asian Americans in 60 cities rose by 150% in 2020. A recent report from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino revealed these incidents range from violent attacks and verbal abuse to the vandalization of Asian-owned business. The new demographic change challenged the cultural hegemony of the white European traditions, creating incredible diversity in race, ethnicity, language, religion, and culture, and leading often to division and hostility. This is the first graph is how has the racial and ethnic makeup of the U.S. changed. So in 2021, the U.S. was more diverse than it was 2010. In 2021, the white non-Hispanic group made up 59.3% of the population, compared with 63.8% in 2010. Between 2010 and 2021, the share of the population that is Hispanic Latino grew the most, increasing 2.5 percent points. The white non-Hispanic population had the large decrease, dropping 4.5 percent points to 59.3%. So the second graph is how has the racial and ethnic makeup of California. So I live in California, so I'm concentrating on the Californian population. In 2021, California was more diverse than it was in 2010. In 2021, the white non-Hispanic group made up 35.2% of the population, compared with 40.2% in 2010. Between 2010 and 2021, the share of the population that is Hispanic Latina grew the most, increasing 2.5 percent points to 40.2%. The white non-Hispanic population has the largest decrease, dropping 5 percent point. So California holds nearly half of the U.S. Latino population and well over half of the Mexican-Irish population. So data from the 1996 U.S. Census indicates that poverty affects Latinos disproportionately, and that Latinos' low educational attainment and poor occupational status participation have a great impact on the current poverty condition of Latinos. So my presentation ends. So I ask 3 people to give me their opinion on these 2 questions. After reviewing all these facts regarding the history of immigration in America, here are some questions. First question is, does the United States have a moral obligation to allow immigration? Why not? Should there be quotas of limits? If so, how would you set those? The second question is, how would you remedy the obstacles in the way of Latino achieving better education to help lift their group out of poverty? So those are my 3 participants, David, Patrick, and Samantha. Please click on the videos to learn about the answers. So I hope you enjoy my presentation.